Chiron trains with an imaginary opponent. He learns how to block and attack in 8 different directions. After a while, Chiron gets exhausted and he realizes that the realm of the sword is as infinite as magic. He heads to the duel thinking that he might not make it out of there alive. The duel begins and Rian notices that Chiron's aura is different this time. He remembers their first encounter thinking that Chiron may have defeated him without any prior training. Rian thinks that Chiron could be a genius like Rai, so he really wants to defeat him. He charges at Chiron, who just stands there staring at his blade. Rian is impressed by his courage. It seems like he doesn't fear death. Chiron struggles as he blocks Rian's first attack. Rian immediately follows up with a flurry of attacks. Chiron can't keep up with his movements, and he gets hit on the chest. He panics as he thinks that he is going to die. Chiron falls back, but Rian catches up to him. It is then revealed that Rian's style, the Ojin swordsmanship, is intended for big swords, so Chiron can't withstand his attacks. Rian strikes from the side with all his might and Chiron blocks it. Chiron finds it weird since Rian could have defeated him if he slashed upwards instead. He concludes that Rian has good skills but he lacks insight. So he adjusts his fighting style. Chiron clashes swords with Rian and launches a counterattack. Rian couldn't believe his eyes. He thought that Chiron was a goner. Chiron pushes him back with basic slashes. He struggles as Chiron focuses on maintaining the rhythm. At that moment, Rian remembers his brother Rai, who defeated him in a duel. After his defeat, he looked at Rai, but his brother just smiled as he looked down on him. Rian gets a second wind and he charges at Chiron. Chiron blocks his attack, but he notes that Rian's attacks are becoming unpredictable. Rian launches an attack from below, and Chiron quickly strikes upwards. As a result, Rian gets disarmed and Chiron wins the duel. Having won against a noble, Chiron starts to worry that Rian will do something to harm him. But to his surprise, Rian humbly accepts defeat, and he tells Chiron that he can strike him down. Chiron exclaims that he only fought to survive and that he doesn't want to end the young master's life. They start arguing about who caused the mess. Chiron tells him that he felt very pressured going against the son of the family head. Apparently, Rian thought that challenging him to a duel was cool. Chiron sits on the floor and Rian finds the situation strange. He thought that Chiron was just like his brother Rai, who would laugh at him every time he loses. Rian finds Chiron interesting, so he asks for his name. Chiron introduces himself, and Rian responds with his full name. After that, Rian helps him up, wanting to become friends. Time passes and we see Chiron back in the library. Temurin compliments him on his performance. He has completed many history books and he is satisfied with his progress. Chiron looks back at his duel with Rian, thinking about how it made his spirit zone better. More importantly, Rian is his friend now. He learns that Rian is actually a good person, but he has his issues. Rian goes to the library to study, but he's too bored to even get started, so Chiron pushes him to study. He knows that Rian is not a lazy guy, but he really needs a trigger to get him started with something. Rian asks Chiron about his plan to become a mage by reading many books. Chiron tells him that he didn't get a chance to study before, so he still has a long way to go. He starts reading in front of Rian, and he impresses the young master with his reading speed. Rian reads the introduction of the book. The book questions the reader about who would win between a mage and a swordsman. But Rian gives up after reading the introduction, so Chiron starts reading the book, wanting to know the answer. Out of nowhere, Rai arrives and tells them the swordsman would win. Rai grabs the book, and the two get nervous, thinking he may have overheard their discussion. It is then revealed that butlers can't have normal conversations with nobles. Rian asks his brother why the swordsman would win. Rai tells him that they can find the answer by looking at the location of the swordsman and mage on the land. Rian questions why the location would even matter. But Rai ignores him and calls out to Chiron, wanting to know his answer. Chiron responds that the mage would win if the swordsman steps into his range, but the swordsman can win if he attacks the mage before the mage can cast a spell. However, Rai rejects his answer, stating that the mage will always lose. After that, he asks Chiron about the 5 godly generals' armor, an anti-magic artifact that disrupts the spirit zone. He goes on to explain that without the spirit zone, a mage can't use magic, so he will be totally defenseless. However, the equipment is extremely expensive. Rai adds that the problem is that a mage came up with anti-magic and the mage did it for profit. So Rai concludes that mages are pathetic because they sell their own weaknesses for money. Surprisingly, Chiron tells him that mages are like that. He explains to Rai that anti-magic has some beneficial uses and it isn't really that bad. Rai gets stunned and Rian starts laughing at him. After that, Rai walks out insisting that a mage still can't win against a swordsman. Rian is happy about what Chiron did, so he compliments him and tells him that he is the best. 6 months later, we see Temurin signing a status report. They are about to send Chiron away, thinking it is a shame because he is very useful. Meanwhile, Chiron finishes reading his last book. Rian goes over to him and congratulates him. Chiron requests to see Rian's house before leaving. Rian gets surprised because Chiron has been hiding their friendship for a year. But Chiron tells him that he wants to see how Rian is living before he leaves. Rian accepts his request, and they head over to his house while the other family members are out. They go to Rian's room and it has a lot of training equipment. While there, they play card games and Rian keeps on losing. He accuses Chiron of cheating with the Spirit Zone, but Chiron denies it. Chiron explains that he is just being observant so he can tell Rian's intentions. He looks around and sees a novel. Chiron asks Rian if he can read it, but Rian falls asleep. Suddenly, he hears the sound of a piano. He knows that Rian's older sister, Reina Ogent, is the only pianist in the house. Chiron heads there, and he gets caught by Reina. He remembers that Rian warned him about Reina's personality, so he's very careful around her. She asks him if he can play the piano, but he tells her that he can't. After hearing this, she asks Chiron to sit beside her so that she can teach him how to play the piano. Chiron reluctantly obeys. She teaches him how to play the piano, and he tries playing it. Reina notes that he is playing the piece wrong, but it sounds similar to what she taught him. Chiron uses the Spirit Zone while playing. Slowly, the sound is getting more and more accurate. She is impressed by his performance. Suddenly, Rian shouts at them, complaining about the noise. He is surprised to see Chiron with his sister. Rian casually tells Reina that Chiron is his friend. Chiron acts dumb, but Rian assures him that his sister won't do anything to harm him. Apparently, Reina doesn't care if he's a commoner. Chiron tells Rian that his sister is actually a good and kind person. But he warns Chiron that Reina will devour him. Reina thinks Chiron is cute and Rian teases him. Suddenly, Reina grabs Rian by the collar and starts hurting him. Chiron is confused. After that, Rian asks his sister why she's home. His sister tells him that Rai is going to be taking the swordsman qualification exam and she's there to fetch him. The official qualification certificate is recognized by the whole continent. The exam only takes place once a year and, although over 1,000 people attend, only around 30 people would get the official certification. On the other hand, unofficial qualification certifications are given to graduates of special organizations. Rian gets jealous thinking that Rai will be taking such an incredible exam at the age of 18. Reina cheers him up as she heads off to prepare dinner. After she leaves, Chiron asks Rian if his sister has a boyfriend. Rian smiles and then runs as he calls out to Reina. He goes outside and screams that Chiron is asking if Reina has a boyfriend. Reina and the maids hear this. Chiron catches up to him and covers his mouth. Reina and the maids brush it off, but the head butler, Louis, watches them from a corner. He states that the name Chiron sounds familiar, so he wants to talk to Temurin. Later, we see Rian training with his master. During a break, his master notices that Rian is motivated, but the problem is schema. At that moment, someone runs to him telling him that Chiron is in danger because Louis gave a report to the family patriarch, Bishop Ogent, and it is related to Rian. So he immediately sets off to talk to his father. But his master doesn't allow him to leave. Meanwhile, Chiron kneels before Bishop and he gets sentenced to death. It is then revealed that the head butler Louis gave him a report about how badly he treated Rian. Chiron asks him what would happen to Rian if they are friends. Bishop tells him that he is stupid and that nothing will happen to Rian. Chiron lets out a sigh of relief and admits that he is friends with Rian. After hearing this, Bishop calls out to the head butler. He orders Louis to deal with Chiron quickly and keep the issue a secret. Reina tries to save him, but his father wouldn't listen to her. They are about to take Chiron away when, suddenly, Rian arrives. He tells his father that Chiron doesn't deserve to die, but his father tells him that things are too complicated for him to understand. But Rian doesn't want his friend to die. His father tells him that his friendship with Chiron is fake and that the commoner just wants to take advantage of him. He asks for proof that Chiron is his friend. But Rian can't show him any proof. He remembers his card game with Chiron where his friend taught him to observe things as a whole. Thinking this is the real deal, Rian holds onto his sword. 30 minutes earlier, Rian was asking his master to let him go. His master explained to him that nobles will wipe out anything that threatens the family's status. So he was wrong to befriend Chiron. But Rian doesn't want to be a coward. His master saw the look in his eyes and he could tell that his student was determined. So he gives his student a sword and lets him go. Back to the present, Rian tells his father that he believes that he is Chiron's friend while holding onto his sword. His father gets angry and he threatens to disown Rian. But Rian tells him that he will gladly be disowned if it means saving Chiron. Bishop tells him to take out his sword and Rian does so immediately. His father exclaims that he is not on the same level as Chiron. However, Rian disagrees. He tells his father that Chiron is above his level and he wants Chiron to go even higher. His father calls him delusional. At that moment, Chiron speaks up. Rian tells his friend to let him handle it, but Chiron insists on helping him out. Chiron tells Rian that he won't regret being friends with him even if he dies. Rian cries and tells his father that he will still be friends with Chiron no matter what happens. The commoners in the room cry upon hearing this. Suddenly, their grandfather, Clump, appears. Clump is the former patriarch. He asks for everyone's opinion regarding the issue. Reina speaks in favor of Chiron, stating that there is no dishonor in their family. Rai is the next to give his opinion. His father expects him to speak against Chiron. But he just tells his father that he doesn't like Chiron without giving his opinion about the matter. Up next is Temirin. Before he speaks, Louis reminds him that they should side with the master. But he speaks in favor of Chiron, stating that he did his job well. It seems that only Bishop wants to punish Chiron. However, the grandfather suddenly speaks up. He tells them that the friendship needs to end because it will ruin the family's image. Clump asks Chiron to let Rian go. But Chiron refuses to do so, surprising everyone. Rian feels ashamed because he just wanted Chiron to survive even if it meant ending their friendship. So he takes his sword and thrusts it into the ground. While kneeling, he swears to become the sword of Chiron, making Bishop very angry. A knight's oath is a promise to live on as their master's sword in exchange for a noble status. A noble would look bad if he denies a knight's oath. Everyone gets shocked by Rian's actions. At that moment, Clump asks Rian about Chiron's qualifications. But Rian replies that a sword does not judge and it only protects. This makes his grandfather laugh. Clump approaches Chiron and tells him to take care of Rian. Chiron thanks him for his permission. After that, Clump orders Louis to bring them Chiron's parents. Later, we see Rian laughing in his room. Chiron tells him that he didn't have to do the knight's oath. Rian replies that he did it because his friend has the power to pull people in. But Chiron tells him that he's all talk and he needs to try harder to protect him. This hurts Rian. Reina arrives asking if Rian really lost to Chiron. Rian tells her to get out, but Chiron lets her in. She tells them that the family is a mess because of what Rian did. She adds that Chiron and Rian will be enrolled in a swordsmanship academy. This shocks Chiron, but Reina explains that he is part of the family now. Rian doesn't want to go to the academy, but his sister kicks him down. He tells Reina about how Chiron is an aspiring mage that already has access to the spirit zone. This makes Reina think that Rian is pathetic because he lost to an aspiring mage in a duel with the sword. Reina learns about how Chiron used the spirit zone to win against Rian. She thinks he's impressive, so she's going to tell their grandfather about Chiron's path. Reina explains that Rian will have to go to the swordsmanship academy if Chiron will become a mage. Rai asks about his masters and he learns that he already left. After that, a butler informs Chiron that his family has arrived. He rushes to meet them. Chiron enters the reception room and he meets his parents. He hugs them and he notices that they lost weight. But they still tell him that they were doing great and eating well. Vincent wants to know why his son called them. So Chiron tells them about what happened. Vincent thinks that his son is now delusional because he went through a lot of suffering. At that moment, Bishop arrives with Reina and Rian. They introduce themselves to Chiron's parents. They get shocked and they bow their heads while introducing themselves. Vincent now realizes that his son is not delusional. He thinks it's unbelievable. They become a part of the royal family, and they are surprised by the treatment they are getting. Vincent nervously tells Bishop Ogent that he finds the recent events hard to believe. Bishop states that he also has an unpleasant feeling. But he would be dirtying Rian's name if he expresses discomfort just because they're commoners. So he will continue to address them properly and support Chiron. Bishop reveals to everyone that Chiron is a Spirit Zone user and he has the talent to become a mage. So they will send him to Alpia's academy so that he can get the unofficial qualification certificate. Bishop tells Vincent that his son is going to become a mage when he graduates from the academy. But the problem is class. Commoners aren't allowed in the Magic Academy, so they decide to adopt Chiron. He assures them that they won't take Chiron and that the adoption is just for the documents. This will make Chiron a noble, but Vincent can't help but think that they are taking his son away. Chiron holds his father's hand and he tells everyone that he does not want to get adopted. He adds that he'd rather live as a commoner if he must change fathers. Clump gets upset and calls Chiron stubborn. Chiron tells him that he doesn't want to leave his parents because they raised him and gave him infinite opportunities. Suddenly, Vincent begs Clump to adopt Chiron. He confesses that Chiron isn't his biological son. That concludes part 2 of this recap. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. What will happen next? If you would like to see a part 3 of this manhwa, let us know in the comment section below. Till next time.